the college football experience interview with former Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year, Scott Wachenheim. Episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Game Time. Snag the tickets without the stress. Use the promo code CFBX on your first purchase to save $20. Download the Game Time app. Use that promo code CFBX for $20 off. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes, play the Underdog Pick'em in college or NFL to win up to 20 times the amount of money you can enter in one game. Plus, every Sunday they're giving away $100,000. Woo! Use the promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy for 100% deposit bonus up to $500. We're also brought to you by VSiN, the network. Yes, sign up now and save 40% off with their football season special when you use the promo code SGP. Once again, VSiN.com/subscribe, promo code SGP. And finally, we're brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com. Use that promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. And remember, as always, folks, too, let it ride.
This is Jerry Glanville, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride, brother.
Yes. Woo! Welcome to the college football experience, the FCS college football experience joint episode here. Yes, this is the FCS college football experience and the FBS college football experience because we have a special guest. This is a special episode. We have an interview with former Eddie Robinson FCS Coach of the Year, Scott Wachenheim. And look, I'm excited to have him on the show because I think he's a fantastic coach. I was a big fan of his run at VMI a couple years ago when they won the SoCon, made the FCS playoffs, and almost knocked off the JMU Dukes. But not only that, just to pick the brain of a coach that I really respect, Scott Wachenheim, and you know, this is a guy that was a former offensive lineman at Air Force. He coached. He was a GA at Air Force. He was a coach with Arkansas back in I think it was the Barry Foster era, perhaps. The Colorado Buffaloes with Bill McCartney. Utah State, Gary Patterson. He's going to talk about Gary Patterson was on that staff with him at Utah State. He was at Rice for a while. He was with Liberty, you know, and they're part of the reason why Liberty was able to get to where they got. He was also with the Washington Redskins under the Jim Zorn era. And then the Virginia Cavaliers before landing at VMI and you know, winning a SoCon championship and becoming Eddie Robinson FCS Coach of the Year. So I'm honored to have him on to talk ball. We're going to talk all things ball, FBS, FCS, and just you know, I'm going to get the chance to pick. It's so much better when you're not having to listen to me, right? Which I guess I should introduce myself in case you're a first time listener. Look, my name is Colby Swigget, Database Dad, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
Nobody knows nothing. Somebody knows. Double the price, but no one touches Dundee.
Yes. No one touches Dundee. Look, I think I know something about football, but I'm not a coach. I want to get inside the mind of the coaches, try to understand what they see it as. We're going to talk a little Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. We're going to talk a little Dan Lanning at Oregon, Kerwin Bell at Western Carolina and the Catamounts. We're jumping all around. Talk Deion Sanders, Colorado Buffaloes, and so on and so on and so. It's Troy Calhoun. You know, talk about Army shifting to the shotgun because Coach Scott Wachenheim, I'm sorry. He ran the air raid at his service academy, and he ran it very successfully. So it should be interesting to see if he buys into what Jeff Monken is doing. And that's why I was honored. I mean, honestly, this is an interview. He hit me up, and I was honored to have him on the show. And I hope you dig this episode. So before I get to the actual episode, I want to tell you that the college football experience and the FCS college football experience, Scott Wachenheim interview, Coach Wachenheim, is brought to you by Game Time. Yes, buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be that stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, theater that is near you. And with killer deals on last minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun that you'll be having at that very event. All right. And forget planning months in advance. I mean, what's that ever done? Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section in a row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So folks, what are you doing? Snag the tickets without the stress. With the Game Time app, download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, create that account. CFBX is the redeeming code and get $20 off. Download the Game Time app. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Yes, Underdog has a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. You can win up to 20 times the amount of money you enter in a single game by going 5, 4, 5. And from now until October 4th, Underdog is matching 100% of the first deposits up to $500. And look, they're giving away $100,000 every Sunday on Underdog Fantasy. Whew, that's a lot of money. And get this, they have a $2 million in prizes going up for season long contest, $100,000 in prizes each Sunday, $10,000 to 10 different people randomly. The new sweepstakes are every single week of the NFL season. So check it out. Watch along, make your picks, and maybe even make a little extra cash over at Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. When you sign up with the promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $500. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by VSiN. Yes, sign up now and save 40% off their football season special, which you're going to want to get when you use the promo code SGP. Once again, that's VSiN, VSIN.com /subscribe, promo code SGP. And look, my pals, Sean and Ryan of SGP are in a contest going head to head with other VSiN shows to see who can sell the most subscriptions. The winning show gets $1,000 Super Bowl future. The best part is Sean and Ryan are going to cut you in on the prize if they win. So step one, go to VSiN.com. That's VSIN.com /subscribe. Use that promo code SGP to sign up. And step two is go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com /VSiN to submit your proof of purchase. If they win, you'll get to vote on what team, to use the $1,000 Super Bowl future on. And if it hits, you'll get an equal piece of the action. So go to VSiN.com /subscribe, use that promo code SGP, then hop over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com /VSiN to submit. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, MLB, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. And look, you can enter any parlay idea into the Hall of Fame Bets revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down leg by leg, as well as an expectancy, an expected win probability essentially for the entire parlay. Look, stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use that promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. Joining me on the college football experience is former Eddie Robinson FCS Coach of the Year, Scott Wachenheim. Coach Watch, how you doing, man? Appreciate you hopping on the show.
Thanks for having me, Cody. I'm doing extremely well.
I got, first off, it was fantastic that you contact, like pretty much how this came up organically. I have been a fan of watching VMI over the years, and I know you've coached everywhere, by the way. I should, I guess, jump in by telling the audience that this is a guy that played for the Air Force Falcons back in the 80s. So under Fisher DeBerry, coached, I think it was the year after the Colorado National Championship with Bill McCartney. You were a GA there. You were a GA, I think, with the Arkansas Razorbacks, and then you went to Rice, Liberty. You've been all over, and just I was familiar from your days at VMI. I remember the playoff run, and you did such a great job there with the Keydets. You just recently retired. I got to just go into it. How is retirement treating you?
Well, I'm competing for the pickleball championship at the Falston Senior Center. So retirement's pretty good. But no, mostly I spend time with my wife, Carla. We've been married 36 years. And I got 2 grandsons that I get to hang out with every day. And then I've got 2 more grandchildren on the way. I'm not 100% sure that I'm retired, but it would take a heck of an opportunity to get back in it. And, I am open to that with the right person were to call or the right situation were to come up. But, retirement's been good, and I'm enjoying it. And I'm getting to watch my younger son, Tyson, who coaches at Towson University. He's the tight end coach there, and I get to see him play. So life is good.
Fantastic. And yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I'm going to have to pay close attention to the Towson Tigers, as I know they're in a bit of a transitional stage, brand new head coach there. But how often do you get to watch FCS and FBS college football? Are you still glued to the TVs every Saturday?
Not glued. So, what I try to do is I try to pick out a game or two to watch the entire game. I think when you try and flip back between multiple games, you really don't get the essence of the game. And if I'm going to comment on Twitter, which I've been doing more in an effort to, be a servant to coaches, hopefully my comments can help them be a better coach, or, maybe educate a fan or two if I'm putting something out there about a game. So I'll pick a game or two to watch during the day. And, I will go to the Towson University football game if the weather's good. If the weather's bad, I'll just stay home and watch it on TV. I'm kind of a little bit tied to Southern Conference football, but if there's, a game that's of particular interest, I'll try and catch that as well. And then, of course, my ties to Air Force, I'm very, interested in what the Air Force Academy is doing week in and week out since I was a 1980 graduate. And just to help you out, I played for Ken Hatfield. Fisher DeBerry was the offensive coordinator where I was there. And so I entered there in 1980, graduated in 84. But it was a great experience there, and then got into coaching and been loving it ever since. But basically watch 1 or 2 games a week, try to educate myself. I really try to watch the games for, if I was a head coach, what decision would I make? I really try and focus on that. I leave the, other stuff to the commentators and the fans watching.
I got you. So wait, I there's so many ways I want to take this right now, but Air Force, were they running the triple option when you were there?
Yeah. So when I first got there, we were in the I formation and we were transitioning to some wishbone. And, my freshman year, we probably ran the I for 3 or 4 weeks. We realized we weren't moving the ball in the I, and we were doing good in the wishbone. And so we went to that and actually took the first drive against Notre Dame down for a touchdown. But, we kind of angered them, and that was about all we scored that game. But from that point on, I think Coach Hatfield knew that was the way to go.
Of this, Mike Leach was a good friend of ours. Rest in peace to Coach Leach. And I got a chance to hang out with Coach Leach, and it's funny. I was not aware that he modeled the air raid after the triple option. That was, to me, what he said. He goes, well, I figured the triple option was basically capitalizing on space and numbers. There's got to be a form and variation that we can do for this in the air. And that was in a way in the infancy of the air raid offense, what he modeled it after. And that's why I was shocked to see that you're an Air Force guy. And then when I was watching you at VMI, you guys were running air raid. What was the mindset behind that?
I might be the only guy that has been an offensive coordinator in the wishbone and been a head coach in the air raid. So it starts with Ken Hatfield. You know, when I played for him, he said you always got to do something different than everybody in the league unless you're just simply better. And so when I went to VMI, I knew we weren't going to be better than everybody else in the league. When I went to the league, it was primarily at that time, the SoCon's changed since then, a running football league. Citadel was running the wishbone. Furman was running some sort of option. ETSU was running power, 22 personnel stuff. And so to be different, I thought we needed to throw the ball. I agree with Mike Leach that the triple option wishbone teams or flexbone teams are exactly the same offense as the air raid. It's just instead of handing the football to the fullback, you might run the inside zone or throw an OTB to get ball out in space instead of pulling and pitching it on the option. You just throw a quick swing pass to the back or a quick sting pass out to the receiver. So, it all made sense to me that was the way to win at VMI, was to try and spread people out, play fast, because I thought we could be in better shape because of the physical attributes of VMI. And I thought that would help us score enough points to win the game. Also, recruiting is different. At VMI, when I was there, I don't know if it's changed. I think it has a little bit, but we had to get 63% of our players from the state of Virginia because it was half the price for an in-state scholarship versus an out-of-state scholarship. And, it's easier to recruit a slot receiver than it is to recruit a slot back. I think guys would rather catch a bubble pass than go in there and load block. So, all those things, probably played into place on why we became an air raid offense. Had I gone back to VMI based on the league,
Yeah, I know you're breaking up a tiny bit there, but well, that's what I find fascinating. So you have and I know you're an Air Force guy, and I got to give Troy Calhoun some a hard time a little bit. I got a chance to sit down with Coach Calhoun in July, and there's all these NCAA rule changes regarding the cut block, and Jeff Monken was going to the shotgun at Army. And I asked Troy Calhoun, are we going to see you more out of the gun? He said, yes, they've changed. I don't know why the NCAA is coming from the service academies. I actually thought he made a very logical point on the fact that I thought we're trying to limit helmet to helmet stuff. And now if we can't block low, you're going to block high, which is going to lead to potentially more concussions. But I'll get your take on that in a second. But Coach Calhoun basically telling me he's going to be throwing the ball a lot more, and that he basically gave me a little bit of a lemon, saying, I think our team's going to have a lot of struggles based on these new rule changes. Hey, they're undefeated and they're barely passing the ball. I'm sitting here coming back to the studio thinking I got a nugget. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, look, maybe we fade Air Force when we do our weekly picks with our friends here. No, they're looking fantastic, but I am curious though, your thoughts on the rule changes, and also like how Jeff Monken, because Army is throwing the ball a lot more, running it's still a kind of a triple option with the Kennesaw offense there. But what do you think of the actual rules? And I know Coach Calhoun was saying that he thinks the game is actually more unsafe with these new rules than it was prior. And also, what do you think of Army moving to this radical change in a way from an offensive philosophy standpoint?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of study on the cut blocking rules, and it's amazing you can still cut block in the offensive line on the backside on defensive linemen, but you can't go out on a screen pass and cut a corner, or a running back the same thing. So I'm going to leave that for the experts that come up with the rules. I'm not sure. If it's cutting down injuries, great. If it's not, then why are you doing it? As far as moving to the shotgun and doing some of the same things, I think you do that some for recruiting. I think players like to see what they're doing on offense by the big time teams or in the NFL. And so when you move some of the same concepts to the shotgun, they feel a little bit maybe more comfortable coming to their school because they get to see it on NFL or, Madden football by the majority of the teams they play with. So I think that's helpful. I think Coach Monken knows his team and knows what fits his team. And so I think that is, helpful for him. And, Coach Hatfield used to always say we were going to throw the ball more, and we never did. I don't think they've had to at Air Force. I think Troy, maybe when he told you that, was definitely giving you a nugget. But when I've watched them play, Coach Labotsky's doing a great job with their O-line, and they are just physically dominating people running the football. So, if you can run it down there, why throw it? So it will be interesting how the year progresses for Air Force, but I'm proud of them being 4-0. Troy's done a great job, and him and his staff, I think their defense was number 1 in the country in several categories with Coach Brian Knorr, who I did play with. Brian, he was a backup quarterback when I played. And so, hats off to both Army and Air Force. They're off to a great start.
Yeah. And Air Force, one of the things, they've been great defensively. But to me, they have so many different guys that can run the ball, and I thought they would regress, especially after Calhoun was telling me that Coach Calhoun was telling me, oh, we lost to Zeke Daniels, our quarterback, and Brad Roberts, 1,000-yard running back. We're just going to be a mess this year. I love that angle. Now next year when I see him again, I'm gonna give him a hard time about that, but because they look fantastic, and I think they might be able to contend in the Mountain West. A couple other things going on in the state of Colorado, and I have to ask about it. I know everybody wants to talk about it. Is the Deion Sanders effect? You were once an assistant under Bill, or a GA, I'm sorry, under Bill McCartney at Colorado when they were a real powerhouse. What's your take in general about Deion Sanders coming to Colorado? So maybe they went through some really challenging years there, but now every station's talking about the Colorado Buffaloes. He's got, kind of a different approach, I would say, on coaching, maybe a little more, in your face, cameras everywhere. But what's your take in general about Deion Sanders with the Colorado Buffaloes?
I love what Deion Sanders is doing, and only Deion can do it. He's a unique talent, obviously as an athlete playing in a World Series and Super Bowl. He's a unique personality that I don't think anybody can duplicate. He's got instant acceptability from his players and recruits because he did it on the field. And, when he first went to Jacksonville State as a head coach, I go, man, I wasn't a big fan because, I had to be a GA for 4 or 5 years to get my first assistant coaching job. And he kind of went right in as a head coach. But, watching what he's done at Jacksonville State and then at Colorado, I just couldn't be more impressed. He's doing it his way. He's doing it with a lot of positive energy. Why not have the cameras in there? That's what the kids want. That's what the recruits want. It might hold your kids more accountable for a lot of things that you want have happening as a coach because they know everybody's watching them. So I've been really impressed with what he's done and look forward to see how he finishes the season. But with that said, there's a lot of controversy. I was really impressed with Dan Lanning. I thought his pregame speech to his Oregon Ducks was outstanding. I don't think he did it to do anything other than to motivate his team to win and come out to a fast start. I think he knew that everybody was going to be watching that game, and it was a great and unique opportunity for him to speak to recruits. And he's done a heck of a job there. And boy, I'm looking forward to following the Oregon Ducks and seeing how they finish out as well. But I really like what Coach Sanders is doing. He's a motivator. He's a recruiter. He's a fundraiser. He'd hired outstanding coaches. Sean Lewis, I coached against as when he was the head coach at Kent State, outstanding offensive coordinator. And so excited what he's doing. He's definitely brought the interest level of Colorado football and all of NCAA football to a new high. So kudos to him. And again, I don't think anybody can duplicate it. I think he's a unique person that God gave him certain abilities that very few of us ever get.
Yeah. And I'm completely on board with you with Dan Lanning. I think, this is one of the things where social media, not to be an old man here and say, this, I don't like this, but I thought everyone was overreacting. I'm like, wait, okay, they showed us that film, but I would expect any of the opposing coaches, if you've ever played football, to kind of, now I guess maybe Dan Lanning knew or didn't know that it got released to the public, but in general, at that moment, he's not thinking about the video. He's thinking about rallying his team to go out there, defend their home stadium and beat the Colorado Buffaloes. So I think it's crazy to have that reaction of saying like, oh, this is not good. This is not good for what he's doing. I just think, have you ever played the sport? I feel like that's a normal thing. I would bet the previous game when it was Colorado State or when it was Nebraska or TCU, even though we didn't get that camera, that window to it, they were probably doing the same thing, right?
Well, every coach is going to give his team a pregame, pep talk to try and get them to go out there to play their best and start fast. And, the prep talk wears off the first time you get hit in the mouth. You stop thinking about it. And, the funny thing is the best guy I've ever been around was Bill McCartney at Colorado. He could make you want to run through a brick wall. But I don't think Dan had any ill feelings in that thing. He wanted to win a football game against a team that was a viable contender to come into Eugene and beat them. And he wanted his team at his best. And they did play their best. And if you really wanted to do something, they were up 39-0 at halftime, and the final score was 42-7 or 42-6.
Yeah,
come on, man. He's a class guy. I like what he did, and if I was in the Oregon Ducks head coach, I would have tried to give a similar pregame speech, but I don't know if I could do one as good as Dan. That was outstanding.
Right? Yeah. No. And look, that I think they made a movie of it. People say, "Oh, Oregon is." They're in the wrong to do that. I think Oregon also is smart enough to know. I don't even know if this is landing. This might be from higher up that, this is recruiting also. Deion Sanders, I think, is going to be stealing a lot of big time recruits, and Oregon knows that game, I think, well. It's saying, wait, we got to make sure that we're a small town in Oregon. We got to get into, make sure we're still getting into LA and San Diego. I know they recruit those areas heavily. So maybe there's a little bit of that to it. I don't know. What do you think about that?
The video is 100% the right thing to do. Recruiting is the lifeblood of any program. You got to have great players. If you don't have better players, it's very difficult to win. With the amount of money coaches make right now, it's hard to outcoach people. So also, you're trying to get NIL money. You're trying to get investors to invest in your program. You got to do whatever you can to get it out there to as many people in a positive light and take advantage of the situations that come your way, because you've got to have money to build facilities. You got to have money to pay your staff. You got to have money for your NIL agreements to get the best players. 100% the right thing to do. And every coach in America is going to move to that. Just like, when Twitter or X came out, no coach wanted to get on social media to recruit, but we had to. So we did it. And then you hired media people and publicists to make all these cool graphics and such, because we don't want to do that. We want to draw X's and O's and try and win games, So, yeah, this stuff's here to stay. Embrace it and let's go.
Yeah, look, to go a little further in on that, I'm curious. You have kind of seen it all. I know you played at a service academy, so maybe they're still like the dinosaur here, because they can't use the transfer portal. But you see the transfer portal, you see the NIL everywhere. You were a part of big time college football programs, regardless of like I said, Colorado, when you were there, where it was in contention for a national championship. What do are you pro all this movement? What do you think about in general NIL and the constant use of the transfer portal? Because it seems like there's certain cases. I know Mac Brown was upset calling out the NCAA for the one of his wide receivers didn't get the pass, and if you look into that case, he probably should have got the pass. But at the same time, Mac Brown was the guy also yelling for guardrails, and the NCAA finally put the guardrails down, and unfortunately, it's messed up, a kid's future regarding him playing in North Carolina. But what's your take in general on just the whole NIL and transfer portal?
Well, players were always transferring. The transfer portal just made it, a more efficient way to do it. And when they allowed players to transfer and be immediately eligible, that's the biggest change that has occurred. And, coaches can leave whenever they want. Players should be able to leave also, and I'm on the player side on that. I'm also think that, a lot of revenue is brought into universities from college football. The players should get a part of that. What's the best way? I don't really know that, because once you start getting NIL money and stuff, you're open to tax liabilities and things, and what kind of situations that create in your locker room. If somebody's getting paid more money than another player, and the guy who's making the most money sitting on the bench, and how do you mitigate that? I haven't had to deal with that myself personally, so you probably need to get a coach on that has. But it doesn't really matter what I think, though, Cody, because it's not changing. It's not going back. You're not putting the genie back in the bottle. So overall, I'm in favor of players getting some of the revenue that they create. I'm also in favor of players having the ability to move on if for some situation it's not going the way they envisioned at the school they're at. And I don't think there'll be a change to that. So, I think coaches are learning how to deal with that. Do there need to be some, rules in place? I don't know, because, every time you add a rule, there's a change and there's some way to get out of it. And there's some, different way to process it. But I would just hope that players understand, student athletes understand that they're not all going pro. Please get your degree. And even if you do go pro, it's the average length of your career is 3 years. Get your degree so when you're done playing, you can do something else with it. I mean, even Tom Brady was 40-something when he stopped playing football, the GOAT. He's got a lot more time to work before he stops working. And, you want to be able to use your education to help you be an efficient giver back, to your society, and also earning money for your family once you're done playing.
100%. Absolutely. I completely agree. And, but also I wanted to ask, do you think we're seeing a parity from the FBS level? I would say FCS, you still kind of have, but maybe more parity happening there too. We'll see. But it seems like from the FBS, we're seeing a lot more parity, and people are saying, the common theme, I think you could say, on social media that I've seen, and I've even made this argument too, is it seems like since NIL has been a factor more and more in the transfer portal as well, it seems like we're starting to get more parity. We had TCU, who was the projected seventh in the Big 12, make the national championship a year ago, even though that was a blowout. And you look at this year, you're seeing it kind of all across the board here in the FBS. Do you think the NIL and the transfer portal perhaps has been the catalyst to this parity in college football?
I don't know. TCU, I would give, they had over 20 seniors on that team. And I think Gary Patterson's one of the greatest evaluators of talent that has existed. And what he did at TCU was just outstanding. He's also an excellent head coach and defensive coach. And I'm shocked he's not coaching currently, because I think he's one of the best. And what he did at TCU is really, amazing. And I was fortunate enough to work with Gary at Utah State for 2 years. I was the tight ends offensive tackles coach, and Gary was the defensive passing game coordinator coaching the safety. So I think that, was unique that they did that. I don't know if NIL will make it, equal or not. I think the number one thing is you got to recruit, and you got to get the best players at your school, and then you got to develop them once they're there. And now you got to recruit twice. We had to do that at VMI. You got to recruit to get them there, and you got to recruit them to stay. VMI for different reasons. The military aspect would lead to attrition, and then the transfer portal did make it easier for a VMI player to transfer somewhere else. And we weren't getting players from the transfer portal, so that did change the dynamic of what we were trying to get done there. But again, I think it seems to me the top programs are usually the top programs. There's 10 to 20 teams that have a chance to win the national championship at the FBS level. At the FCS level, I think there's even more separation because of the amount of big-time FCS programs, James Madison, App State, Georgia Southern, to name a few, that have moved up to FBS. And so, you got South Dakota State and North Dakota States, separating, those schools are in a state where there is no FBS program, and, they maybe have an advantage in recruiting and resources to some of the other programs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned Gary Patterson. I'm shocked that he's not coaching either. I mean, we had Bud Foster on the show, and we were asking him what was his favorite he couldn't pick one from his tree of coaches that he likes to watch the defense of every single week. And he said, by far, Bud. He said Gary Patterson, and he said Rocky Long. Which Rocky Long is now at Syracuse. I shocked that because I know he retired from San Diego State. It looked like he was gonna ride off into the sunset, but now he went to a quick stop at New Mexico, his old school, and now he's up there in Syracuse, New York, with Dino Babers. and they're undefeated. I mean, do you know Coach Long, and what do you make of him now at Syracuse, and perhaps them having a pretty successful season?
I don't know Coach Long, but when I was an offensive tackle at Air Force, he was a defensive coordinator in New Mexico for one of those 4 years I was playing. So he's been coaching a while time, but I think he's an outstanding coach. Former Wishbone quarterback, I believe. He turned defensive coordinator. So heck of a ball coach, and he's still getting after it. Syracuse having a great start to their season as well. I think Dino Babers is another guy that knows how to get it done. Big, kind of play with pace, spread them out, throw the ball around, and does a good job. Plus, he's got Robert Anai, who is at Virginia, is Robert at North Carolina State. He's got
he had Robert Anai come to Syracuse, and his longtime assistant Jason Beck stayed at Syracuse, and Robert Anai is at NC State this year. But they're running the same stuff. They're running Beck's running the Anai offense at Syracuse this year too.
Yeah. So I mean, good. It's all good stuff, and it's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And look, I got a couple more things I wanted to pick your brain about. So you mentioned your son coaches at Towson, correct?
Correct.
Kirk Ferentz, who I'm a big fan of. He's gay. I've been a big fan of Coach Ferentz for a long time. He's I thought done an unbelievable job at Iowa. He also is kind of the punching bag right now in college football, I would say, for the fact that their offense hasn't been very efficient the past 2 years, and his son is the OC, Brian Ferentz. And for some reason, I thought this was ridiculous. In my personal opinion, was that they put a stipend basically in his contract of saying like, hey, if you got to score 25 points a game, or you're going to be out of here next year. And I thought that was stupid because Iowa still wins like 9 or 10 games every year, I feel like. But regardless, he only put up 78 yards of offense against Penn State last week. People are like I said, it's become like a national pun. But what do you make, and how would you handle that situation if you are Kirk Ferentz? I mean, is this one of the things where his son's going to realize, hey, Dad, don't take the heat, I'm out of here, or does Kirk Ferentz just double down and say, hey, I win 8 or 9 games every year. This is what we do, but what do you make of this whole scenario there in Iowa City?
Well, I agree with you. I think Kirk Ferentz is an outstanding coach, and, Brian Ferentz is one of the top offensive line coaches in the country, not only for college, but the NFL. And if, Brian was out of a job, he'd get hired probably within 24 hours. He'd have this choice of, quite a few jobs, and highly respected in the coaching community as an offensive line coach. I think his first year as offensive coordinator, they put up a whole lot of points, and, he knows how to coach football. He hasn't forgotten. Don't know the Iowa program all that well, but I would do a deep dive on maybe the players. One thing I've learned is explosive players make explosive plays. And if you don't have explosive players, then you're trying to use tempo, you're trying to use formations, you're trying to use shifts, motions, or trickeration to try and create an explosive play. And, that's difficult to do because the other coach on defense is pretty good too, wherever you go. And so, I don't really like the stipulation in the contract. I think, Coach Ferentz, if I'm the head coach and I want whoever it is, whether it's my son or somebody else to be the offensive coordinator, I'm going to keep him coaching there. And then if they don't want that, they don't respect that decision, they could, get rid of me. If they put that in the contract, if Coach Ferentz is fine with that, I'm fine with that. I'm not, he knows a lot more than I do. So I don't like it that it's in there, but I have a lot of respect for both Coach Ferenz's, and I think the rest of the coaching community does as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I just think that's to me, like you're winning 9-10 games every year. If you gave that to most programs, I think they would take that in a heartbeat. We're going to win 9 or 10 games and compete, play for a Big Ten championship. He does it every couple of years. I feel like I just think it's a little bit of overreaction. But look, I also host the FCS show, and I got to talk a little FCS. I love the FCS as much as I love the FBS. And you said you still keep your eyes on the SoCon. I've been, I've been lobbying for Western Carolina in the offseason. I was saying, hey, watch out for the Catamounts. But I'm curious right now, if you had take your pick. Who do you think the top team is in the SoCon?
I think Furman, I think Clay Hendricks has done a great job at Furman. I think, right now they're the champion from last year. Until you beat the champion, they're the champion. I think Western Carolina, Corin Bell and his son Cade, they really do an outstanding job on offense. I really like the way they attack opposing defenses. I think, they really, really do a good job. Mercer, who had lost the game to Furman last week, I thought that would tell who the front runner was. And, Mercer came behind them. But again, they do a good job there. And Chattanooga stubbed their toe against North Alabama, but North Alabama's playing pretty doggone good football. But I think Furman's in the driver's seat, and then right now I'd probably put Western as the second team, coming out of there. Those are that. I don't know what Sanford had a lot of offensive firepower coming back, but I think some of their defensive players moved on, and he really put together some good defensive talent from the transfer portal a year ago. I'm not sure because I haven't followed it since I'm not coaching this year quite as near as closely, so not sure what's going on. With them defensively, but I heard from some friends of mine that they didn't have the same players they had a year ago.
Yeah, that's been a bit of a shock. As they were projected pretty high in the preseason. How often, do you tune into to watch VMI, the Keydets, and see how they're doing under Coach Rocco?
I only check the scores, and I try to wait till the game's over to check the score. When I left VMI, I wanted to give them the best chance to move forward. And so, I did it very quickly, the day after the last game of the season was over. I wanted my staff to have the most amount of time possible to find another job. I wanted VMI to be able to hire a head coach as soon as possible because I thought we had 15 kids committed that were pretty good recruits, and I wanted the next head coach to have a chance to keep them. And, so I wanted to do that in a way that gave VMI the best chance to be successful. And so I do not want to be a distraction in any way to that program. I actually coached for Coach Rocco. He hired me when I was out of work. Coach Hatfield retired at Rice. He gave me a chance to be an offensive coordinator at Liberty University. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Danny Rocco. He's an outstanding football coach. I emulated a lot of the things he did as the head coach at Liberty when I worked for him at VMI. And I think VMI hired an outstanding person to come in. And I don't want to do anything to distract or deter what they're doing. Excited that they're off to a 2-2 start. That's a big time victory at home over Wofford. They've won 2 close games, which if you can win some early ones close, that gives you a lot of confidence when you play some close ones late. So, it looks like they have some winnable games coming up. So I think he can have a really fantastic season this year. And I'm excited because a lot of the players that are at VMI are guys that I recruited that I still love to this day. I've just tried to stay far away because it's Coach Rocco's team now. I want him to have, their full attention and not in any way, shape, or form get in the way of that program moving forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I commend you on that. And look, is there any teams though? I know you said you try to choose 1 or 2 each weekend. Is there certain ones you pigeonhole just because you're like, whether you mentioned Sean Lewis or whether you mentioned, I know Gary Patterson's not coaching right now, but are there certain teams this year that you're saying, well, I gotta make sure I watch them because I love what they're running? Or what I know that coach and he always, gave me problems. I want to see what he's doing. Is there any in the FCS or FBS that just, catch your eye?
Well, week to week, I just look for the matchups, but Colorado, because of the media attention and all the excitement Coach Prime's putting out there, that grabs my attention. I wanted to watch the Texas-Alabama game, early on. And I was just impressed with how improved Texas was. I thought they were better on the O-line and D-line than Alabama is. And I think Sarkisian's an elite play caller. I'm really excited to watch the Texas-Kansas game this weekend because I think Kansas does an outstanding job, on offense. I wanted to watch the Florida State-Clemson game and was really impressed with how Florida State played against LSU and how Florida State played against Clemson and, excited about what's going on there. I haven't had a chance to see many of the West Coast games, but, with Washington State, the way they're playing in Washington, the way they're playing, I'd like to catch a couple of their games. But I don't stay up that late at night, and so hopefully I can catch them at a normal time game. But week to week, I just look at things and I go like, hey, this week I definitely want to watch Kansas versus Texas. That's the game that I'm really looking to focus in on, because if Kansas can beat Texas, that says a lot about Lance Leopold and what he's doing. And I like what they're doing offensively. I really do.
I mean, this podcast and this show, the year they brought in Leipold to Kansas, I lobbied for them to be a surprise. I said, watch, they're gonna be better than what you think. They win at Texas that year. They almost beat Oklahoma. The next year they go bowling. So that's been our darling. But I love watching that offense. I think that is one of the most dynamic offenses. And I'm curious, I don't, he's able to retain his OC. I know people came for his OC, I feel like, and he stays there at Kansas, but that offense is one of the more dynamic to watch. And it's kind of like a play on the triple option yet again. I mean, what do you make of that offense? And do you think we'll start seeing more and more offenses aligned to what they're running there?
Well, it's copycat, coaches copy other guys, but here's what I know about offense. If you can create 8 running gaps with 2 tight ends, and with the threat of going 4 verticals, with a running quarterback as a running threat, it's difficult to play defense, because you got to cover 8 run gaps, you got to cover 4 verticals, and then you got to tackle the quarterback. So that takes 13 players on defense, and you're only allowed 11. So if some combination of that, now it doesn't have to be tight ends to create those running gaps, and it doesn't have to be a run game to create that space. You can create that space with Mike Leach did, by spreading out and throwing the ball, and different coaches have done with tempo and space and spreading people out throughout the years. But the other thing is just how well he's recruited at Kansas. That's the secret sauce. And as far as his offensive coordinator, well, he's an offensive line coach, just like Florida State's offensive coordinator is an offensive line coach, and I was an offensive line coach, offensive coordinator, and it's difficult to get other jobs, because people think coordinators need to be, quarterbacks. And I think people think head coaches need to be quarterbacks, but some of the best head coaches were offensive line coaches in their earlier careers, Chuck Noll, Andy Reid, just to name a couple off the top of my head here. But I think his coordinator's probably staying there because he's making enough money and he loves who he works for. And, if he gets the right opportunity, he might move on. But man, if you're working for a good head coach, and you like the staff and you like the way things work, staff unity and dynamics, and to truly being a family, that's worth its weight in gold, and it's hard to ever leave that. So I'm excited. I think it's 2 great offenses. I think Sark's as good a play caller and setting up people with formations and motions as anybody out there. So that would be a great game, I think, this Saturday.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I'm all in on Kansas, and obviously I want to see if Texas, because Texas did look great, but also Alabama has had their struggles since that game. So maybe they're not the same Alabama team. It's going to be fascinating to watch and see, because I think that could be a preview of eventually the Big 12 championship.
Well, I don't think Alabama should have changed their quarterback, and I think Coach Saban might not. I think his coordinator maybe wanted to bring in the guy that he was comfortable with, knowing his system from Notre Dame, and that didn't work out. And they went back to to the Minton kid, and boy, what a class way he handled that. And he came in there and led them to a big win over Ole Miss. And that's one thing in coaching, that there's a study out that if you lose a game and you change your starting group, you're more likely to perform worse when you change. That's always the answer. Make a change. But stay in the course as proven, especially with, not changing starters, is proven the course to win more games. And I think Next Gen Stats did a study on it. I'm not quite sure. But, you got to, as a coach, ignore the noise and know and trust your heart and your gut and do what you think is right. And there's a reason why guys earn starting positions. And the toughest place to do that at is quarterback. It really is.
Yeah. And look, I think Milroe's their best player, but I also think you got to cater to his skill set. And I don't know that I thought watching the Texas game, they probably, and it's easy for me as a guy sitting back here, but to try to get him more like designed running plays. But I don't know. I do think he is their best chance to win, and it's going to be interesting to see the progression week in, week out with him. But you mentioned Notre Dame for a second there. What would you tell if you're the athletic director of Notre Dame? What do you tell Marcus Freeman? And what I just want to know your take on the final two plays of the game. You only have 10 guys on the field, 2 consecutive plays. And I thought Marcus Freeman handled the press conference after well when they were attacking him or attacking it. Why would you do this? But I also was a bit dumbfounded when he said, well, we didn't want to give up the offsides because it would move them closer to the end zone. But I was like, you're at the half-yard line anyway. I mean, did you at VMI, did you ever have a guy whose job was specifically to count the amount of players on the field?
Well, there's a couple of things you asked me. Number one, if I was the AD at Notre Dame, I wouldn't tell Coach Freeman anything. I hired him. I trust him. I know he knows what went wrong. He took accountability for it himself at the press conference, which is admirable to me. It's admirable to his players, and they'll be able to move on for it. What happens is a lot of times on defense is you have different personnel on defense, just like they have different personnel on offense. And you might want to, if they're in 10 personnel, 4 wide receivers, 1 running back, you might want a certain defensive group out there. If they're in 22 personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 backs, 1 receiver, you might want to be in the bigger personnel group. And I found when I was the head coach that sometimes that communication got distorted. And so what I told my defensive coordinator, who is a good friend of mine, Tom Clark, look, we got to learn if we can't match sub for sub, the referees are supposed to hold it up. But sometimes they don't, that we got to learn to play whatever we get with what we got in a disadvantageous situation to make sure we have 11 on the field. Or if a tempo situation came up, or if they explode from 22 personnel to an empty formation. So, we definitely did that. We had a guy count, and we made sure that we didn't get stuck with 10 guys on the field. The other thing that's critical in that is your timeouts are worth gold. And a lot of times I find people use their timeouts in situations they really shouldn't use them. And if he had a timeout there, he could have got, timeout called and get the right people on the field. I've seen a lot of timeouts wasted, like you got to be able to block a field goal with your defensive starting unit out there. You can't have a substitution deal because they might not kick a field goal, or the kicker may line up split out wide. So you got to be able to do things on defense that sometimes you're at a disadvantage because of the personnel you have on the field, but it sure is better to play with 11 than 10. But with all that said, you got to find a way to keep your timeouts. Don't waste your timeouts. Save them for critical situations, even in the first half, because to have them on a 2-minute drive to get 3 points at the end of the half, like the enemy did for the Redskins the first 2 games, won them 2 games. So 2-1 because they got 3 points at the end of the first half. They ran 2-minute drives with 3 timeouts so they could go down there and score. So you shouldn't have to use them in a situation that you shouldn't. And, make sure you got 11 on the field. But with all that, Coach Freeman took full accountability for it. They're going to learn from it, move on. But I definitely had a guy count until 11. And we talked about that regularly at VMI because I said, let's make them beat us because we're better. They're better than us. Let's not get beat because we don't have enough players on the field or we don't have enough timeouts.
Yeah. Look, I have a friend that's a big time Notre Dame fan, and I'm sure this is maybe he has changed his opinion in the coming days, but his initial reaction was, we got to get a better head coach. And I'm like, man, I get it. It's a really bad look, but we're all human. You made a mistake. All right. It happened twice in a row. I guarantee you he's not going to make this mistake again. You move forward. I think he's probably going to be a fantastic head coach. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think Coach Freeman has, Notre Dame's better since he took over.
Yeah.
He's doing a heck of a job recruiting. He's recruiting better players. Did he make a mistake? Yes. Will he learn from it? Yes. Will it happen again in his career? Doubtful. Hey, football coaches, sometimes you make mistakes and you do it in front of millions of people. And it's real easy to sit back and say, hey, he shouldn't have done it. And, he'll have a plan in place that it doesn't happen again. And it can happen because, again, if they're substituting real fast, and again, think about the angle. Coach Freeman and his staff are at the 20-yard line. The ball's at the 4. There's, it's hard to see who's coming off the other sidelines. It's happening fast because Ohio State hit a big pass. They run down there. Decisions are having to be made split second. Even though you never want that to happen, I do understand how it happens. And I went through great lengths, call Tom Clark on the phone and say, how long did we talk about not having that happen to us? Because I didn't want to lose a game that way. I wanted to make sure they ran over us. So I get why it happened. I'm impressed that he took full accountability at the press conference. Hey, nobody feels worse about it than Coach. He probably got 2 hours sleep that night, and he's having to answer that question. Saturday at the pregame show, he's going to have to answer that question, but he'll learn from it. I think he's a good coach. They got the right guy. One mistake does not warrant a head coaching change.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree. I think you got to be patient with him. He's shown great signs of to me, like you said, accountability. And also I think he is a good football coach, and we all make mistakes. Well, Coach, I appreciate you hopping on. I want to give you the floor. First off, this came up organically. You DM'd me and my eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. I was like, hey, I know him. I want to get him on the show. I really appreciate you reaching out to hop on the show. And I want to express, how thankful we are that you were willing to come on, and we would love to have you back. And I want to give you the floor also and speak about why did you just all of a sudden, want to just hit us up and say, hey, let's go. Let's do a little interview here.
Well, Cody, I am retired this year, or just taking a step back and, watching things from a different point of view. And I was impressed with your content on Twitter, and I listened to one of your podcasts, and I was very impressed. I thought you were putting valuable information out there. And I'm trying to do the same thing in a little different sort of way. I would love to help young coaches in the coaching profession become better coaches. And, it's hard in the coaching profession to reach out to others to learn anything other than X's and O's, because we're competing against, one another. And now I'm available. And so if a coach, has a question that they want somebody that's been there, done that, probably made a mistake. I lost a lot more games than I won as a head coach, but I had to learn how to deal with it. And we got to the point that we overcome it and, won a conference championship and played in the playoffs against JMU and only lost by 1 touchdown. So, and we were kicking an onside kick to recover and go score. So, I wanted to I would like to be a service to people. It's hard to get your name out there unless you take a stance on controversial topics. And, I don't really want to do that unless I have a really strong belief that, I think things are not being portrayed correctly. Like, I do believe what Deion Sanders is doing is good for college football. So I want to stand for that. I do believe Dan Lanning 100% wanted to win the football game and had no other thought in mind when he did that pregame speech. I do believe, I'm very proud that Coach Mack Brown stood up for his player and did that publicly. So there's things like that I wouldn't have said anything if I was still coaching, but I am now. And there's other things that happen that I want to try and help, coaches learn from. Like, for instance, how do you stop from having 10 men on the field? And I dealt with that. I got it. Clemson not making the 3rd and 1 in overtime. I've made that mistake, calling an RPO on 3rd and 1 or down in the low red and the quarterback pulling it and throwing it. And I told my offensive coordinator, look, when we're in that situation, don't call an RPO, call a predetermined run, because he did exactly what we're coaching him to do. And he said, well, he should know the situation. Okay. Yeah, he should know the situation. He's old, or he's a senior that just got hit in the head, and he's you know he doesn't have a concussion, but he's not 100% there either. Let's take that off of him, that decision off of him. So, I'd like to be there to help coaches, and sometimes, hey, coach, why'd you run the air raid or the wishbone? Well, here's why. Here's what the thought process. And again, just somebody they can run ideas off of, talk to, and you also encourage them. Like, hey, man, don't beat yourself up. Everybody's made these same mistakes. That don't just keep grinding, keep going, keeping on. But again, if there's any coaches listening to this, if they want to, they can shoot me a DM. If they can't DM me, find a way to get a hold of me. I'd love to help you all out. And Cody, if there's anybody else other than you guys, Colby, have them give me a call. I'd love to come on your podcast, help guys out. If I can get you a few more clicks and likes, then awesome.
That's fantastic. And look, you're helping us out, and I really appreciate that. And by the way, he is on Twitter at Coach S Watch, like WACH, folks, in case you're not watching on YouTube. Once again, youtube.com/the college experience. Well, we appreciate it. And look, you're helping us. And look, I want to have you back because I love picking your brain, learning about things. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? What'd you think of, I was just listening to a podcast on the way into work today where they didn't know, and I didn't know, if they had someone, designed, his job was to count 11 players on. Is there a solo job for somebody, a GA, whatever, to count 11 players? I was not sure from team to team. Is there a guy? But it's great to sit there and be able to pick your brain and be able to figure out stuff like that and say, oh, well, VMI had one. So as much as, I'm defending Marcus Freeman, I do think that's something they're probably going to have moving forward as a guy that's counting the 11. But I really appreciate you taking time out of your day, Coach. And you're welcome back here at any time. And like I said, as the season prolongs and we get, more crazier outcomes, I might be trying to contact you saying, hey, you available for 30 minutes to talk ball?
Well, definitely anytime. So I'll DM you my phone number so we don't have to trade DMs. I don't always monitor that, but I'll shoot you my cell phone number. Just shoot me a text back with yours. I'll plug you in. But anytime you think I can be helpful on the show, give me a holler. I'd love to come back on.
Oh, we're definitely going to take you up on that. Thank you so much, Coach, and look forward to watching all the games this week. And I will definitely be in touch. Thanks again.
All right, take care, man. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. Take care, folks. Give him a follow at Coach S Watch, WACH. Thanks again.
All right, love the energy.
Thank you. Take care, sir.
All right, man.
All right, we are back. What a great interview. I really appreciate Coach Wachenheim taking time out of his day to talk to us about ball. Once again, didn't have to do this. I love the fact he's given back, and I think he was a very good coach. And there's a reason why he won Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year. He knows what he's doing. It's great to hear it from the coaching perspective. You know what I mean? Like, I was unsure if the Marcus Freeman thing. Do you have a guy counting 11 every single play? I know everyone says that, but you don't truly know. They had it at VMI. I thought that was interesting. Everything he said was interesting. we're gonna make sure we bring him back because I really was fascinated by a lot of the stuff he said there, and I hope you dig this interview, folks. So look, make sure you get out there, get on over to Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, and give him a follow. Once again, I will plug it. It is at Coach S Watch. That's so at Coach SWACH on Twitter or X. Give him a follow because it's fun giving him a follow. Also too, because he'll be commenting on whether it's pro or NFL, college or FCS or NFL. You'll get into the mind of a football coach with a done a lot. You've been a part of some big time staffs, whether, like I said, I was wrong about Fisher DeBerry, but he still, I think, might have been a GA there under that. No, probably not. But Bill McCartney, he's been on the staff with Gary Patterson. You can go on and on. Danny Rocco, Jim Zorn, Mike London, a lot of great coaches there. So honored to have him on the show, folks. That's our episode. I had a chance to interview him. I wanted to get this thing in, and I hope you guys dig it. So give him a follow, and also give us a follow at TCE on SGPN. I'm on Twitter at TheColbyD. Also remember that I host the FCS College Football Experience and the FBS College Football Experience, Both those are available on YouTube, youtube.com/The College Experience. Subscribe over there. Also host the College Basketball Experience. Big basketball fans here as well, as we just started doing our previews there. And we have the College Baseball Experience with Noah Beanick and myself. Check out that. And there's a Big 12 Experience out now. All of those are separate podcasts, but we come together as one on YouTube, youtube.com/The College Experience. Get the SGPN app for free in the App Store and Google Play Store. You'll get access to all of our content. And come talk college football with us. Maybe you agree with Coach. Hop on over to the Discord, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Discord, and talk ball with us. Whether it's FCS, whether it's FBS, I'm excited to see another slate of games this week, folks. So we'll be back later tonight with our week 4 preview and picks edition, but wanted to get this one out from a coach that I really respect, and I think it was a fantastic coach and former player, former college football player himself, offensive lineman from Air Force. So honored to have Coach Watch on. And look, we'll be back later tonight, folks. Until then, this is the College Football Experience. Scott Wachenheim interview, special episode. You better start thinking about yours. And we are out of here.